There's a common saying that a dictionary is out of date the day that it's published. And to a large extent, that's true. Perhaps the way to think about it is constantly painting the Golden Gate Bridge. Crews start at one end, paint their way to the other end. By the time they've gotten to the other end, they need to start all over again. And I think that's the way dictionary publishers have proceeded. We have worked our way through the alphabet. When we got done, we started over and worked our way through again. I think now we're really facing a different kind of model. Every morning we walk out onto the Golden Gate Bridge and we look around and ask ourselves, what would be a good part to paint today? Creating an unabridged dictionary is clearly the most challenging and most daunting task any lexicographer will do in his or her professional career. We identify a new sense of a word that no one has ever defined before. We identify a new word that no one has defined before. Or we see a word being used in a way that no one has ever described before. It's like finding new planets in the solar system, new stars in the sky. And when you're working on an unabridged dictionary, that's really the thrill in that silent room of lexicographers. That is the sound of new knowledge being created. It's a thrill.
I don't know of any pure way to work with language in a practical way. I'm not trying to convince anybody of my opinions. I'm not trying to persuade anybody. I'm just trying to show what the language is. What I like most when I'm a definer is working on a common word and discovering that there is a sense that no one has ever defined before, and I notice it and I get to define it. And I find that's a thrilling thing.
Because we now are conceiving of the Unabridged Dictionary as an online database, we have unlimited space to work with. And I can tell you that's just a revolutionary change for a dictionary editor. The last time the Unabridged Dictionary was entirely revised was in the 1950s.
The third was released before the moon landing, before the Vietnam War, before the first successful heart transplant. And that's just a little smattering. So you have so many new words coming in, so many new technologies to cover, and new ways to gather information as well.
Throughout the history of Merriam-Webster, we re-engage with that question of who are we, who is the user, what is the nature of our relationship. And that question is asked most deeply when you're creating the Unabridged Dictionary. And there have been some very notable dictionaries in that history, ones that have been received with universal acclaim, others that have sparked great controversies, because when you're creating Unabridged Dictionaries, you're asking those big questions again and trying to answer them in a very robust and responsive way.
The Unabridged was a tome. It was a big physical thing. People viewed it that way, and that's why I think they expected a certain degree of, formality in it. People go to a dictionary and they want to understand what they've come to look up, and that's what we want to give them. We want the definition to be only as technically worded as it needs to be perfectly accurate.
Well, we look at the language and we see if it's challenging, and if it is challenging, are we linking it to other entries? Do we provide enough information that says, go here if you want to know more about this particular word?
The usage paragraphs serve to present all the evidence to the reader so that the reader can make an informed decision. It's very much about describing what exists, what we find in published edited text, and what we find in more casual speech.
We have this great resource in the office. It's our citation files, and they're huge, but they're an in-house thing. And so getting to add quotations from the citation files is exciting, because now we're getting to share a lot of that knowledge. It's not just the depth of information that you can get, but it's also the breadth of information. You can get highly technical language. You can also get very general language, general vocabulary. You can get brand new vocabulary. For the Unabridged Dictionary, we're moving much more towards author quotations, because that's how the language is used. It's the language live in the wild. Of course, we've quoted Shakespeare and the Brontes and Jane Austen and Charles Dickens. Everyone from Sarah Vowell and Garrison Keillor to Mike Huckabee and Barack Obama. The Unabridged Dictionary is going to be the dictionary that American English speakers use, because it's just going to be so comprehensive and so quickly updated and so full of information. It'll be the biggest, most comprehensive American English dictionary, period.